Luffy! 目を覚ませ！ ルフィ。
Many people believe that at the end of One Piece, Luffy, our beloved protagonist, will lose his life. But how could this happen? Well, many believe that Luffy will be defeated and captured, others believe that he will become sick, and there are also those who believe that Luffy could lose his own identity by becoming someone else, thus ceasing to be the Luffy we know. After all, in a previous video we talked about the illness of Gall D. Roger and Edward Newgate, and how their illnesses were handled in a way that made it impossible for these two characters, who were known as the greatest and most powerful pirates of their time, to stay alive for much longer. So could the same thing be happening to Luffy? Could Oda give him a disease to limit Luffy's powers? Or is there another way to limit the powers of the Nika fruit user's imagination? Will Luffy lose his humanity? Or will Luffy be defeated by the world government? Stay with me, we'll talk about this now. And well, my dear pirates, here on the channel we have already analyzed the height of Luffy's powers as described by Oda in Road to Laugh Tale Volume 3. And in that video I mentioned that Oda would have to find a very creative way to deal with Luffy's powers, so that he doesn't become something like a Toon Force in fact, so I came to the conclusion that maybe Oda could limit the using Luffy's Gear 5, and that's exactly what he's doing, or giving Luffy a kind of illness, a negative effect of prolonged use of Gear 5. That way, Oda wouldn't worry about having to deal with the absurd level of Luffy's new powers for some time. As I said, Gear 5's fatigue is relatively greater, which is why Luffy's transformation into this new state ends up being for a short period of time, but as we know, it's also a matter of time before Luffy manages to overcome this weakness and start to get used to this ability to the point that he can keep Gear 5 activated for much longer. However, there are some interesting characteristics about mythical Zoan devil fruits that can bring some harm. And this could be Oda's answer to better control the limits of Luffy's powers and how far our beloved Straw Hat Captain can go with his powers of imagination. And well, since Luffy began to develop his abilities based on the power of his devil fruit, we had the information that Luffy, by forcing his heart to pump more blood, could shorten his lifespan and his health as a whole. But after the time skip, Luffy learned to control his abilities better, and these effects became so insignificant that Luffy no longer feels the same fatigue when using his primary forms of gear. But this problem ended up returning after the awakening of his devil fruit. When Luffy was about to die in the fight against Kaido, the awakening of his fruit forced him to revive. Let's say, his heartbeat increased a lot to the point that Zenesha said that he was finally hearing the drums of liberation in the same way he heard in the past with the old Joy Boy. Luffy was then able to face Kaido with all his powers, but it still wasn't enough. His transformation was exhausting, and we saw how Luffy really was exhausted. If his previous fight against Rob Lucci already left him extremely weakened due to using Gear 2nd, here with Gear 5 we saw Luffy literally wither in age. He literally became an elderly man. Frustrated, Luffy begs for his heart to beat at that rate again so he can fight again, while Kaido keeps telling Luffy to be careful not to die because of his current state. Now add this to everything that happened to Luffy previously. Well, for those who don't remember, Luffy arrived completely worn out due to all the confusion that happened in Impel Down. Luffy also suffered fatigue and also a lot of damage in Marineford, reaching the point of almost dying in the middle of the war, but thanks to Ivankov, Luffy was able to return to battle after receiving some adrenaline hormones that, according to Ivankov, would directly affect Luffy's life expectancy. We must also remember that when Luffy was poisoned and defeated by Magellan in Impel Down, while he was trying to survive the poison, Luffy was injected with some hormones and, according to Ivankov, two things could happen to our protagonist: either he would die immediately or he would survive but would lose 10 years of life. And well, Luffy ended up surviving. That is, my dear pirates, if we add up all these damages and side effects that Luffy suffered, we can theorize that at some point he will have to feel some considerable damage to his body, even though he is made of rubber. In other words, Luffy could suffer the same fate as Roger and Whitebeard, but for different reasons and with a much more plausible explanation than the excessive use of haki or just a side effect of the devil fruits. In Luffy's case, it could be the union of several different factors, and this could be the limitation of his powers, or who knows, the end of Luffy. Luffy has already said that he does not fear death, but he has also said that he would not die as long as he has friends to protect and a dream to fulfill. So I believe that before something bad can happen to our dear Straw Hat Captain, he will achieve his objectives. Just like the old Pirate King. Of course, there is another possibility, which is Nika taking over Luffy's body. We know that the mythical Zoan can end up dominating the mind and identity of its user if he is too weak. Of course, Luffy is not weak, but this can happen gradually until it reaches an irreversible point and Luffy is no longer the same. And this theory goes against the most plausible possibility in this video, which is the clash between pirates, mainly Luffy, who fights for freedom, against the world government. There is a theory that Luffy, like his predecessors, will also lose his fruit at the end of One Piece and will leave a legacy for future generations. It was believed that Nika and Joy Boy were the ones who fought against tyranny in the past, and that is an absolute truth, but this fight against the world government and the oppressors came with the possible death of these legendary freedom fighters, thus creating the legends of Sun God and Joy Boy. And if the death of these characters happened this way, we can theorize that Nika was the first and then Joy Boy ate her fruit and thus inherited her will and spirit, becoming the sun god of his time, and now we are seeing Luffy fall in the same fate, only this time, Luffy will bring true freedom. And when the free people of the world feel that their freedom is being threatened again, it will then be time for a new Nika to be born, eat the fruit and free the people again. What do you think of all this? What's your theory on this? I want to know your opinion about everything we commented here today. But of course, if you made it this far, it's because you like the content, so it doesn't hurt to subscribe to our channel and become one more member of our fleet, my dear pirate. And of course, do not forget to press the like button, that helps a lot in spreading the video and the channel, so help us to become the largest fleet of pirates here on YouTube, okay? A big hug for everyone. And until the next video.